What makes an iPad app great? Douglas Adams, in the bestseller The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, introduced the idea of a handy travel guide. He wrote that it looked like a largest electronic calculator with 100 tiny flat press buttons and a screen on which any one of a million pages could be summoned at a moment's notice. It looked insanely complicated, and this is one of the reasons why the snug plastic cover it fitted into had the words "Don't Panic" written on it in large friendly letters. Well, according to Adams, this guide was published in this form because if it were printed in normal book form, an interstellar hitchhiker would require several inconveniently large buildings to carry it around in. That book was conceived in 1971 and published in 1979. How did he know that the iPad would be the hitchhiker's dream come true? Douglas Adams called his guide insanely complicated, and as everyone knows, Steve Jobs calls his insanely great. What was complicated back then is now a part of everyday life. In fact, the only insanely complicated part of the iPad experience may be trying to develop a killer app for it, one that best exemplifies the iPad's features. As you already know, the iPad is a tablet, the new category of mobile device located somewhere between a Mac laptop and an iPod Touch or iPhone in terms of its capabilities. The iPad evolved from the iPhone design and runs iOS, the iPhone iPad operating system. Now, the App Store is loaded with travel and digital media apps, so you know already that the iPad as a hitchhiker's guide is not a fantasy. In fact, the iPad already runs the 400,000 plus iPhone apps in the Apple App Store. It runs them with either pixel-for-pixel accuracy in a black box in the center of the display, or scaled up to full screen, which is done on the fly by doubling the pixels. You use the same software development kit and much of the same code to develop iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch applications. The iPad runs the same operating system as the iPhone and iPod Touch. However, the iPad is a bigger device with more horsepower and a larger display. For many iPhone app developers, the iPad's larger display alone changes everything. Apple demonstrated exactly how far things have changed when the company demonstrated the iWork suite of productivity tools. That includes Keynote for presentations, Numbers for spreadsheets, and Pages for word processing and page formatting. These apps would be unthinkable for today's iPhone or iPod Touch, but they work great on an iPad. The biggest challenge in making a killer app for the iPad is to design for the iPad experience. And one reason why the iPad offers such a better experience than any Windows netbook or tablet computer is its sex appeal, which for many apps can mean more excellent content and finer style. If the explosion of new iPhone apps since its introduction is any indication, you will want to take advantage of the iPad's sexiness, and that means leveraging its fabulous touch-sensitive interface and other features. With all this in mind, there are at least two things that you need to consider, besides functionality, of course, when it comes to creating a great iPad app. Exploiting the iPad's features, including the iOS platform and Apple's ecosystem, and creating a compelling user experience.